Pumpkins. They're a familiar sight in October. Pumpkins are one of the oldest crops in the American continent. Native Americans cultivated them for thousands of years for food, but starting in the 20th century in the US, a significant portion of pumpkins have been grown primarily for Halloween.
My name is Jack Kerbida, and I am a California pumpkin.
You said pumpkin?
No, I am not a pumpkin like these delightful orange pumpkins behind me. I am a California pumpkin, which means that I am one of the largest pumpkin producers in the great state of California. Each year, I have over 1,000 acres of harvest. So I mainly grow the Howden variety of pumpkin. The size and shape make it perfect for carving and for jack-o'-lanterns.
In the 1960s, a farmer named John Howden developed a strain of pumpkin from an heirloom variety specifically for making jack-o'-lanterns. The result is the Howden pumpkin, which immediately became a commercial success. But what drove farmers like John Howden to develop a pumpkin for the purpose of carving jack-o'-lanterns? Well, let's look first at the story of the jack-o'-lantern.
Essentially, pumpkins didn't have anything to do with jack-o'-lanterns. They were originally lights over marshes and bogs, and that only occurs when the conditions are right. When there's decaying matter, decomposition, and the cold weather of the fall, a chemical reaction that starts in the ground. When gas comes up, methane gas and other gases spark when they hit the cold air. So if you imagine in the Middle Ages, when there wasn't quite science, tales and folklore started, and that's where we get the term jack-o'-lantern from. So the name Jack in medieval times used to represent a trickster or a prankster. So when people would go into the bogs at night and see these lights, they'd follow them thinking somebody was leading them around, and they'd get fooled. And so when they would make their way back, sometimes after a number of days, they would say that they got tricked by Jack or that they followed Jack.
Isn't Jack your first name?
That it is. But you know what? You can definitely trust me.
Many jack-o'-lantern light sightings were documented as early as the 15th century in England and other parts of the world. But as natural areas were developed for farming and industry, the phenomenal jack-o'-lantern lights also disappeared from the landscape. Still, they remained in folklore, taking on other names like will-o'-wisp. They also took on more sinister and human-like forms in the imagination. One myth that's still told today is the story of Stingy Jack. The story, which comes from Irish folklore, combines Celtic and Christian beliefs along with values held highly in farming societies of 16th through 18th centuries in Europe. It tells of a wealthy but stingy farmer named Jack, who conned many, including the devil himself, into paying for his vices. When he passed, he was rejected by both heaven and hell, but he managed to steal a few burning embers from hell to light his way in purgatory. They say he sometimes enters farms to steal turnips, which he would hollow out to carry his hell embers.
The villagers then started carving turnips to ward off Stingy Jack from coming. So I'd like to think there's a more kind of playful version of the story around villagers, maybe children, playing tricks on each other by carving out these root vegetables and putting lights in them. Because if you can think about, what's a better way to scare somebody than by putting a face on something in the dark?
Among the customs that European settlers brought to America in the 17th and 18th centuries was the practice of carving excess produce into jack-o'-lanterns. Since turnips and other European crops weren't available in the New World, settlers turned to pumpkins, and even before the Howden variety of the 20th century, settlers found pumpkins to be easier to carve and better at holding candles than the root vegetables of the Old World. These traits would eventually cement the relationship between pumpkins, jack-o'-lantern carving, and Halloween in the US.
Pumpkins have snowballed into a multi-million-dollar industry, one that I'm happy to be a part of.
In the 21st century, pumpkins are the premier symbol of Halloween, even in some countries outside of the US. While there's little reference given to so-called malicious lights over cold swamps that supposedly led passers-by into dark woods at night, or warnings of wandering lost souls like Stingy Jack, the tradition of carving pumpkins into jack-o'-lanterns will undoubtedly be carried on to many generations, at least until